Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Obscure Arc. My name is Emre, and I'm here with my co host, Jared. How are you, Jared?
I'm good. Honestly, I did scrunch in all of these anime in 1 week. I'm not gonna lie, just due to my schedule. But Makoto Shinkai is a director I like to come back to a lot. Primarily, not that I love all of his films, but it's a very interesting journey that he went on, and I'm very excited to talk about him.
Yeah, I did the same thing. So, but like overall, it was still an enjoyable watch. Like I'm pretty sure that if this was like another month, that would be like crunching all of those into a week would be much more painful. But this was like, even though I kind of had to rush it so I could watch everything, it was still really enjoyable, and I did like, you know, felt fulfilled watching them.
I mean, I think this batch of episodes is some of our highest quality all in 1 month
That
together.
is true, yeah.
I'm curious about because we've been kind of introducing you more and more to the type of boy meets girl slice of life with a twist of like sci-fi and other type of things movie genre, and I'm curious because Makoto Shinkai, that's like his thing. I'm curious to how your initial impressions were to the uh, trio of films that we saw.
Yeah, so just so anyone who might not remember, the three movies Jared's talking about are basically 5 centimeters a second, The Garden of Words, and then Your Name.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which I actually enjoyed all of them. Um, and I wasn't expecting to enjoy all of them. Not that I don't like Makoto Shinkai or anything. First of all, the art is always beautiful. But it's just that in general, I have not the best experience with movies.
Mm.
Usually, I tend to enjoy shows or series much more than I do movies. But lately, that's been changing. You know, the more bad shows we get and the more good movies we get, I feel like that can be a new thing. That being said, I really enjoyed all three. It was fun. And they all have our good points, good parts, bad parts,
Mm-hmm.
which we'll talk about later on. But overall, that was like a pleasant Makoto Shinkai run.
Little course, a little three course meal.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
So for me, Shinkai is, as I've mentioned a couple times here before, there was a period of life where I stopped watching anime and stopped playing video games, which, if you know me as a person now, is like inconceivable to who I am. It was a rough time in my life, y'all. But Makoto Shinkai, specifically your name, was kind of one of my few early gateways back into the anime world. And it was something that I was really happy and a bit nostalgic for because I kind of watched it. I knew about the trailers and kind of watched it at a time, and it was something very warming to me. So I did want to do a bit of an ode to Makoto Shinkai, not because I think he's my favorite director, or not because I think he's like infallible or anything crazy, but solely because I think as an artist in the modern era of anime movies, he's a very interesting subject to look at. So to start off with a little bit, he actually started off in a very weird place in his career. He started off at Nihon Falcom, and that might sound familiar to you if you know me, because Nihon Falcom is the company that makes Trails, my favorite game series probably of all time, at least single player series. And he didn't work on games or anything like that. This was back when you made, in-game cutscene movies type of things where, you would do them out of engine. They were more just anime, but like 1 minute or so, or kind of however. He then would move on to making some of his own shorts. He did a lot of animation and a lot of he's an animator himself. Like, so even though he's a director, he's done a lot of animation specifically for his shorts, as well as also, art, sound, like music. He's
well,
done
that
all.
explains a lot.
Yeah, he's done everything for making his own animations. I believe She and Her Cat is one that is I know beloved by a lot of people. I think to give context, I've seen all of Makoto Shinkai's work just so that I could be most fully informed for this episode. But She and Her Cat I know is a very beloved one, as well as also he has also done Voices of a Distant Star, which was also completely done by him. Him and his wife, actually, or I believe fiance at the time, voiced all of the characters, and then he redid it with actual voice actors.
That's fun.
And he's also done like stuff like Someone's
That's
Gaze when he
too.
became a bit more established. But he did a lot of short films, and he didn't really get his first feature until the place promised in our early days. Now, the reason I didn't choose that one is low key, it's kind of too boring. So for someone who loves boring, it's a little too boring. I really appreciate it, and I think it's great for what it is, and it's a good starting point. But honestly, with any of the early Shinkai, you just pick one, and they're all kind of the same. The ones I chose were the ones that I think had the most interesting ups and downs related to them, and that's why I wanted to talk about them. But he did start with his first feature, The Place Promised in the Early Days, like actual proper 90 minutes. And then he kind of moved on to do 5 centimeters a second, Children Who Chase Lost Voices, The Garden of Words, and then Your Name. His magnum opus, one of the top animes, movies in terms of, or even Japanese movies, like in terms of profits of all time. Like I believe it's still within the top 10, maybe top 5. I couldn't tell you. He then released.
I'd believe you. So
no, it was one of the first, if not the first, anime movie to like break into the Ghibli bubble of like Ghibli was the top selling, only like held all the spots. And then we had shonen anime movies come out, such as
so the quality increased.
I'm not falling for rage bait, dude. not this early into this. I'm not falling for rage bait this early into the session.
It's only been like 3 minutes.
It's been 3 minutes, and I'm getting rage baited for fun. But after that, he did Weathering. But like to give you an idea, like Your Name was like critically acclaimed like across the world. Like it's like one of the easiest entry points I tell for a lot of people for watching anime. And if I told you to watch this episode because I said, hey, go watch Your Name, then listen to my podcast, congrats, you're listening to me. But Weathering with You came afterwards to a bit more middling kind of, it's not Your Name, basically. And then Suzume was another, it was a bit more of a uplifting part of his career. And he's currently supposed to be working on another film, supposed to come out either this summer or sometime late this year. Nothing confirmed. No trailers, no nothing. So, but that's where he's at. He's got a very specific style of, boy meets girl. It's like, I saw a tweet. I think editor maybe will probably add this, but it's like, it's Makoto Shinkai was excited to announce what his new movie's about. It's like, let me guess, a boy meets a girl, and then it's just like ... and that's how he does his films.
Hey, and he does it good. So
when a formula works, works. But we're gonna kind of skimp on doing production details at the very start. I know you might be very used to it, but due to the special nature of this, we're really only gonna focus on the production details of Your Name, because that's kind of the one we're solely focusing on. Yeah. We watched 5 centimeters a second and Garden of Words kind of as additional context to be like, hey, this is his career. Let's compare it to how he shaped his works later on, specifically Your Name. The most important thing you need to know is he's worked with Comics Wave Studio for basically all of his fully produced works. Like besides the ones that he made himself, he's always basically been with Comics Wave. But for 5 centimeters a second, let's get this started. I will say that when I first watched it again, like on this rewatch, I've seen it only one other time. I haven't rewatched it as much as some other Shinkais. I thought I would like it more on this rewatch, but I didn't really. I still like it. Don't get me wrong. It's still probably my favorite Shinkai outside of maybe Suzume. Maybe, I don't know. Okay. But Your Name is my favorite. But I'm curious to what you thought, because I actually was very shocked that you liked it more than I thought you would.
Yeah. So anyone who might know me, or who knows me in general, I like cozy stuff. I like winter. I love when those elements come together in general, like in terms of art, fireplaces, stuff like that. That's why I also like camping related animes and similar stuff too. And 5 centimeters a second, as like 90% of the movie, almost. Well, not 90%, but like literally
it's split into 3 parts technically.
Yeah, so the first part being in like a harsh winter and like train travels. I also love trains. So all of those elements coming together and them trying to reach one another like continuously, kind of like checked all my boxes if I were to like an anime like this, because story wise I understand why you'd assume I wouldn't like it as much, because like there's not a crazy amount of like action or whatever, and there isn't like a really good amount of like specific niche sound designs or stuff like that. Music is nice, you
Yeah,
know,
Tenman does the music for
like
it. It's very good.
subtle and nice. Helps the environment, but like you know, it does lack what pulls my attention normally.
It's like I gave you a romance with no payoff. I was kind of expecting slightly more negative considering how
Yeah.
you typically react to that type of stuff, but I mean, just generally at a glance when we see Makoto Shinkai's works, we see very concentrated narratives.
Yeah.
Often side characters are super secondary. Like usually you got your heroine and your hero and that's really those are your two
Yeah.
focuses.
My biggest thing is that like if we're talking about negatives is kind of lack of perspective. So I could have liked this movie even more if it was more balanced between the boy and the girl.
So Akari the girl, Tono the guy.
Exactly. So it was a bit too Tono heavy and too little Akari, which I think I read online that the original source does a much better job in terms of.
Well, okay, I can't remember exactly for 5 centimeters a second might be the one exception. However, Makoto Shinkai is technically a novelist as well, and usually the process he does, I know he's done it for most of it, is he does the movie and then he writes the novel afterwards.
So what I heard is I think in novel it's more Akari's perspective, and in movie it's more Tono's perspective. So a lot of people were saying like, oh, actually you should do both to get the full experience, but I don't know because I didn't look up the novel yet.
Yeah.
But as a movie, that did feel kind of lacking to me. And yeah, like I'm not gonna lie. Like, did I enjoy the most when they didn't end up together? No, I'm a sucker for happy endings, but I do also acknowledge like not every movie has to end with a happy ending and what we want to get. So you know that's a whole nother
Listen,
thing, but
I'm a star-crossed lover's ride or die. I love when they don't end up together. I love when it's filled with longing and upset, terrible feelings. I love that. I also love romance where they are happy and together at the end, but I also am a huge fan of this feeling of longing and missing that is coming from movies like 5 centimeters a second. In general, like with 5 centimeters a second, with how it's sectioned up, as well as also how it's like paced, it can be a bit jarring for people because like at the end and right before the final montage, it just says like the moments of their time apart or something like that. I'll probably include a screen cap, and editor me will hate that. But it's clear that there's probably some production issues. I wouldn't be shocked.
yeah.
And you know, it's like, because this is like an hour. This is like, I hate to say it, Angel's Egg length, where it's like an hour but barely.
Yeah.
And it's kind of got a little bit of padding here and there. Not as bad as Angel's Eggs padding, but like, you know, padding to say the least. And I will say like Sumida's arc is a bit lacking for me. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think she's a bit too one note, where I understand the feeling and I appreciate it and I like how it all works out. But I honestly would have preferred to see more separation between Tono and Akari as adults. Because like they kind of like, you know, Tono, and this is going to get into spoilers. To be fair, it's really hard to spoil this movie. It's, you know, they don't end up together kind of more or less. That's really the biggest spoiler.
Yeah, like, because this movie is, at least for me, it was like just like how do you even put that? Like an environmental kind of like giving you a certain vibe type of ride.
Yeah, it's a hard
like
aesthetic. I wouldn't say it's experimental, but it's very much focused on an idea and an aesthetic that it really wants to deliver.
Like it's not necessarily like there isn't that much of like a crazy story to be spoiled. It's just that you're getting on this ride and you're just, you know, going to the end to experience the whole thing and not necessarily waiting for that one fight scene or this or
Garden
that,
of Words
like,
and 5 centimeters a second are both a bit they're both a bit incomplete in that regard.
Yeah.
I would argue 5 centimeters a second a bit more, even though it's longer, just because of how fragmented the plot is.
Yeah.
The one thing that Makoto Shinkai does super well is he has very clear themes in all of his movies, like very clear, which is funny because I saw a quote from Mamoru Oshii that he apparently doesn't. He thinks that Shinkai doesn't have clear themes, but it's very clear. It's like he's about like this feeling of longing and the triedness of relationships that are separated by some reality and whatnot. And I think the movie being named 5 centimeters a second is very beautiful. Like, this movie's clearly very seasonal, of like
It is.
winter, summer, fall, kind of with Sumida, and then spring.
Yeah.
But it's a very sad spring, which is rare. Like, when we see springs, it's, in anime, it's, cherry blossoms, which this movie is literally named 5 centimeters a second because of cherry blossoms.
Yeah.
But it's like, cherry blossoms, youth, excitement, new love, like all these things can come together. But it's a very like mournful, we could have been together. When we turned around, we could have maybe seen each other. But alas, we're separated. And I think there's something very beautiful about that. And I think the ending montage does a lot of work. That said, I do think that there's a bit too many gaps for me to be like, oh, this is an incredible film type of thing. Like, Makoto Shinkai really grabs you in a lot of montages, and like you get really swelled up in the moment.
This is a movie that I would like turn on and play it in the background.
Oh yeah,
Like, it's, and I'm not saying this as a bad thing for anyone who's listening or watching. Like, there's very few movies that I feel like that much at peace in a sense. Like, it has that like calmness in a sense to it that like it can blend in with the environment, and you're blending in with the movie's environment.
Yeah,
So,
Makoto Shinkai loves nostalgia. Like, I mean, a lot of anime movies love nostalgia, but Makoto Shinkai loves nostalgia. Like, he really cares about it. And so something that I think is very interesting is that his dialogue is like super secondary in these films. Like, later on, his dialogue becomes more important, but I think his dialogue in both Garden of Words and 5 centimeters a second, in comparison to his more modern works, are so secondary. And so I can understand why a very specific audience that I've heard from prefers his older works, because of the kind of aesthetic and specific vibe that it goes for. And,
even like stuff like, again, on chapter 1, as you, if you can't tell by now, chapter 1 is, I think, my favorite. But like, even he's on the train, and like he's kind of getting sad, and he's like standing right next to the open door, and like the wind blows and it's chilly, and he doesn't realize it, and then the dude does realize it, and he's like closes the door, and he's like, oh, sorry. Like, that type of environment, like him going through stations and trying to figure out like which train to take, all that environment, like, that's kind of a nostalgic feeling for me too. So
yeah, it's that melancholic nostalgia of a specific memory you had as a kid. Like, it's very vivid, despite not being like super like in your face about the details. It's very vivid, of like, oh wow, it's these small moments that build up what we care about in what we remember. For some reason, we remember the door.
It romanticizes what you experienced as a day-to-day basis, and that kind of helps you feel good. So
I mean, the time they spend together is like, the whole thing is like, one more night in that cabin together, just waking up the next day. That's all they kind of wanted. But their lives, I think Makoto Shinkai hates the world for this, but your lives, your realities, all these things force you to separate from that one feeling that you cared about so much.
Yeah.
And then that can lead us over to a bit of the Garden of Words, which then not only is it a feeling, an idea, or whatever, it's more centralized to a location. Like, the shack is a location in 5 centimeters a second, but the Garden of Words keeps going back to this one little, like, I don't know if I should call it like a covering, or I don't know, like a meetup spot in the garden. And it's a nice little covered area.
Like their safe space.
Yeah, it's definitely a safe space. But the Garden of Words is also weirder for a lot of reasons.
It is. We're cutting super close to certain things, my folk.
It's I call it like training, where it's like they train their animators to have the ability to animate certain things for reasons, like water, very important to animate.
Dude, yeah.
It's actually a super important thing. What are the next thing that's on the list that's important to animate? Feet. Apparently that's real important to be able to draw those well.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. My guy is the first like 36.5 lover. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know.
Yeah. Shinkai loves older women, to say the least. If you notice in all of his films, you'll notice that. But to talk about things that are very specific to the Garden of Words in Shinkai's work is, I believe right here is when the animation quality from Comics Wave and the art and everything becomes so much clearer. Like, I enjoy the aesthetic of his older films, and I enjoy the aesthetic of 5 centimeters a second, but like the water and like how clear the art looks in all of this is so pretty. Which kind of explains why it's probably like 46 minutes or something like that, because it probably took them so long to perfect this, and they weren't ready for that workload. But man, is it pretty to look at.
It was especially in details. like in a lot of anime, I feel like it gets its beauty from colors,
Mm.
um, more than details. But I feel like with this one, it was more in the details, like how the water splashes and how shadow hits certain aspects, and like angles, how all the angles are kind of like precise and following each other. All that stuff. It was like you said, it was really really clean. And dude, one thing that put me off though.
There's a lot of things that could put you off the Garden of Words.
Yeah, there is. But how much they elaborated on the dude like measuring
It's a
the
montage, the whole
the
montage of it.
teacher's feet. I was like,
I mean,
I
okay,
get you.
to
But
say one thing specifically about the relationship is not inherently like romantic or sexualized or anything like that. It is a bit weird because of the history of anime and how anime is not innocent. Let's just say that.
there's a romantic hint given, but that's not necessarily the end goal.
No, yeah.
But like they do feed the idea and then pull it back and then continue their original way.
I think they give it the appropriate amount of legs to it. They don't try to do anything crazy. It
No,
is
yeah,
more or
yeah.
less the dream of a dumb high school boy who doesn't know any better type of thing. Who's like, I think the beauty of their relationship is that, they're both outcasts. They don't really have a place to be at that point in their life, and they're trying to figure things out. They're very forced out of their own lives and try to find a way back into it by
And they
being in this
both
place.
they kind of both find a safe space within each other in a sense.
Yeah, I think the relationship is very beautiful. Like Makoto Shinkai's core relationships in all of his movies
Yeah.
are oftentimes they have a lot of similarities, but there is enough uniqueness and enough kind of flavor to all of them that makes them very distinct from each other. Like I
Yeah.
do really enjoy the Garden of Words overall, kind of like two very different people coming together, but finding at least enough to relate over. Even if I think this movie's a bit sparse on details, like there's a couple of montages in this film that just don't have dialogue
Yeah.
or don't have any narration or anything like that. And I was just like, there must have been something that went wrong here, because in later Shinkais, that does not happen. Or if it does, it's usually a lot more visually distinct, because there's a lot of just like, oh, we're montaging the past time, and it feels like a bit of like, oh, they don't have a direction,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That being said, though, it still shows you, like you mentioned, a really well executed relationship, an idea of what they want to find in their lives are. Um, and just to elaborate on more what I wanted to say when I was talking about like safe space,
Mm-hmm.
like this is the first time Takao ever felt comfortable saying that he actually wants to be a shoemaker, which is like that's why he is interested in people's foot and shoes. People, we were just joking about the fetish
Yeah.
part, but he wants to be a shoemaker, but he never mustered his courage enough to tell it to his other friends or family. And then for Yukari, she is kind of after the experience she had with students the bullying situation she was in, she kind of just couldn't go back to her ordinary life and couldn't take that step
Mm-hmm.
until meeting Takao, which become her like almost like igniter to be social again, to interact with people again, to engage with life again, and enjoy some of life.
Yeah, a lot of Shinkai's works have a loneliness to them that's kind of inherent, but there's a certain level of abrasiveness both these characters
Yeah.
experience that, like, Takao, like, he's not bullied, but he's not
No.
treated well, and he doesn't have a household that really loves him per se. Like his brother's like, he's all right with
My
him.
brother's chill, but
I mean, his mother walks out.
he only has a chill brother, no dad, and a failure mom. So it's like when you have two parents that doesn't exist in your life and your brother is chill, that doesn't help. Like
Yeah, and Yukino is like obviously has a whole bully situation. There's even some stuff with clearly like she was in a relationship with one of the other staff members at some point. And, clearly things just went wrong in general, and she wasn't welcomed in that space. And kind of finding that space is the real beauty of it, because God is the garden gorgeous, as well as also is it like a very interesting area to be in terms of like you'll very rarely be in a space in your life where you can like be down, but then also find a place that is completely unrelated to you, but be a solace. Like, you know, those are like kind of
Yeah.
weirdly enough, like once in a lifetime experience type of things. And you don't know when that's going to happen in your life. I will say I am talking more positively about the film than I actually feel about it. To say some slightly more negative things, I don't actually think the relationship in the details is that interesting. I think that it's a nice feeling and idea, but ultimately when you get into the details, they don't really understand why they like each other as much in terms of
No,
like,
it's
you know,
it's always vague for the audience too. It's
yeah.
like, yes, he told his secret, I guess, to her, and she kind of started interacting with life again through him. But other than that, you don't necessarily dive any deeper. Like I feel like that's the most like you get out of that interaction at all. Like
Yeah.
there's nowhere to go. Like I've literally, this was like a what, 45-minute movie or
Yeah,
something like
something like
that,
that.
and literally the last 15 minutes you are already where you are,
Yeah.
and don't go any much further, and you're like, okay, like from some point on you're just watching them realize what you already know, which does not help you um watching it. It doesn't bore you because it's just like the last 10-15 minutes, but like it's not going
It
anywhere.
wasn't paced in a way where it was like it definitely could have had more legs, but it was clearly paced in a way that wasn't, probably due to again some
Yeah.
production issue. But like it really would have been nice to see, like, first of all, Yukino doesn't really get that vulnerable with Takao until she's, spoiler, crying in her arms, crying in his arms at the very end of the movie, which I thought was a beautiful scene and I think has meaning to it, and I think the idea of it is great. But ultimately, we don't get to see why Yukino and Takao's relationship can blossom and be so meaningful. We just kind of like, you have an experience like that, you can probably, you know, project it onto this and feel it in that specific way. But
Yeah.
ultimately, it's like it rushes to the end where it's like they have that great time together, and suddenly he goes, "I love you," and then it's like there's no breathing room or anything, and then it just all spirals to the end and barrels down to it. And I'm just kind of like, whoa, okay, geez, that all happened within the span of like 10, 15 minutes, and I really would have appreciated some of that slower burn. And also, again, it's like an incomplete kind of through line. There's not much,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of meat on the rest of the world. You know, there's not too many. I mean, there's really not any secondary characters to it, so it truly struggles
You
to.
see like brother and brother's wife like twice
And they're not
maybe.
utilized. It's just kind of like
Yeah.
a, hey, this is another thing they can do, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm, while there's very specific things I like about the Garden of Words, I would say it's definitely one of his weaker films in like my honest opinion. I think even some of his shorts are better than this, but
I wasn't bored though.
no, I think that's
Like
completely. I don't think it was boy. I just think that the actual essence of the movie is lower than his standard, just
it
due to the
is.
lack of details, as well as also like I don't think
Yeah.
he. It's really the art that really pushes this movie to being like, wow, he stepped it the fuck up. But for beyond that,
Yeah, and that carries like that's the strongest part that helps you be entertained in a sense.
I will say something that's interesting is you will also see a lot of his older movies inspire some of his later movies. Like if I would say Your Name is probably most inspired by like a little bit of a Voices of a Distant Star and like a lot of 5 centimeters a second. There's some other stuff that you can say, but Garden of Words and is in terms of aesthetically inspires Weathering with You a lot. Like if you liked water aesthetic, that's Weathering with You's like entire thing.
Yeah.
And then Children Who Chase Lost Voices inspires Suzume a ton. So it's interesting to see how his own work kind of like continues to develop, and it's very clear and concise. I appreciate that he's an artist who's very honest to what he's doing with his work, and it's like a clear progression of who he is. And to kind of lead that to talking about his magnum opus, his greatest work of all time, at least for now, is Your Name. And now we will get through the typical, if you don't care about production stuff, sure, but I care about production stuff, for Makoto Shinkai's Your Name. So this was, again, as I said, the studio was Comics Wave in August of 2016. They haven't really done much else besides like Shinkai works. Like he's done Suzume and Weathering with You as well, and there's a couple of other small things, but I believe, I don't know if it's founded by Shinkai. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But they also did Flavors of Youth, which Shinkai was not directly involved with. I believe it is from the studio, not himself. But Your Name was produced by, give me 1 second, Toho, Sound Team Don Juan, Lawson HMV Entertainment, Amuse, JR East Marketing and Communications, Kadokawa, and Vogue Ting. Most importantly, being Kadokawa in there. This is an anime original, like basically all of Shinkai's works are. And again, written and directed by Makoto Shinkai. But for Your Name specifically, this is the first time the music was done by Radwimps. That will be very important later. But one thing that's important to know about Radwimps is the lead singer of Radwimps and Shinkai are close, and they work together heavily on this film. And I'll throw in some fun facts a bit later about it. But to talk about Shinkai himself, we've talked about kind of all, I've talked about what all of his movies are. You can just see what they are. The sound director for this was Haru Yamada, who has done Maiden Abyss, Banana Fish, and Black Bullet. He's a relatively experienced guy. I think he's done a lot of Shinkai's works. I don't think it's just your name, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Both Maiden Abyss and Black Bullet are really like sound heavy movies.
Maiden Abyss is especially sound heavy. And then where you can watch this, currently it's on HBO Max. It's been on, like, depending on regions, it varies a ton, but like Shinkai's works are sometimes on Netflix. They're sometimes on Crunchyroll. You can obviously watch them in a ton of other places that I won't mention. But to get into Your Name, I'll say that Makoto Shinkai's works, and this is all for me, are some of the most authentic pieces related to the human condition that I've seen. Not just in animation, but in film in general. He painstakingly works on setting a beautiful yet melancholic tone that often deals with the troubles of relationship and longing. Your Name was his magnum opus and is one of the most complete realizations of an artistic vision that I've ever seen. And basically with all of Shinkai's films, the genre is the same, which is it's a drama, kind of-ish, slice of life, Japan, some sci-fi. That's it. Lots of nice notes and flavors here and there. I mean, to be fair,
like some supernaturalism.
Yeah. Like some of his other works, such as the place promised in our early days, as well as also Voices of a Distant Star. Those are both way more sci-fi, but specifically most of his works is like slice of life, touch of sci-fi.
Like he uses it more like just to keep the interest.
Yeah, it's a flavor. It's mostly a storytelling technique more than it is the genre itself. In terms of art and production value, honestly, Makoto Shinkai's shorts, they start off real rough. I know some people will defend them to their life, but my guy was editing them probably in his fucking room alone by himself and just hoping to get through it, and good for him. But honestly, his vision has only really improved over time. I can truly say by the time we get to Your Name, it's got gorgeous art and animation. The things that you expect out of a feature-length film and an anime film, up to the levels of like Ghibli and all that. I've, at least basically since Your Name, I've never left a Shinkai film and felt disappointed in the production value. I think it's always been incredible. So that said, now that we've talked a little bit about a bunch of the two other Shinkai films, I want to get this idea of what have we been following along in Shinkai's works that you enjoyed following along in Your Name?
Well, first of all, he, as much as I didn't like some of the endings, he does usually do a really good boy meets girl, girl meets boy kind of story. It's always entertaining. What did I think and followed? Well, watching Your Name, one of the first things that came to my mind is straight up like he took what he did good from his older movies, or in this case, since I watched 5 centimeters a second and The Garden of Words back to back, like I was able to see that he took like good parts from both of those works and applied those directly to Your Name, whilst improving what he was lacking, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he cleaned up a lot of production value things.
Yeah.
Like he's been slowly improving over time, but Your Name's production value is just a clear step above. I think the thing that separates Your Name from even his other films, it's the most complete Shinkai film in terms of having a complete vision, a complete through line, a complete aesthetic. It's so clean and all of that.
And one thing I said about both movies is that the lack of perspective. And both 5 centimeters a second and The Garden of Words, we're stuck with just one of the main characters.
Usually the male.
Yeah. And, some type of storytelling is suitable for that and is, sufficient for it. But when it comes to stories like this, I feel like that's not the most captivating route to take.
It's called Boy Meets Girl, not Boy Meets Redacted.
Exactly. So with Your Name, you get both perspectives. Again, it's more on Taki, the
Hmm.
the main, like the male main character, but you still get a ton of Mitsuha,
I love Mitsuha.
and
I love her
like
so
she's a
much.
great character. Like I think other than Mitsuha's sister,
Hmm.
because she's just too funny.
Hmm.
Um, like Mitsuha might be my favorite character. I don't
She's
know.
definitely my
She's
favorite
she's
character.
like so good, bro. And anyways, going back to what I was saying, being able to see both perspectives, being able to know both characters, what is what carried this movie. Because just to like put it out there, I don't necessarily enjoy like body swap movies a lot. Um,
So
I,
honestly, let me just say, this movie is low key me sneaking into. I've been trying to get us to watch a specific anime called
yeah,
Heavenly Delusion. This is me sneaking us. It started with link click. Now
yeah,
it's
I
going to
know
your name. We're slowly sneaking towards body swapping being okay.
exactly. But um, anyways, like because of that, when we first started, I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. Usually, I don't enjoy these a lot. But because of the way he told the story, I actually ended up enjoying it much more than I would otherwise.
I'm a big fan of how he frames his stories.
Yeah,
Like, first of all, this starts off with the whole like the comets in the sky, and it's like nothing more,
yeah,
nothing more, nothing less than a beautiful view. And then it's like Radwimps starts playing, and it's like, whoa,
yeah.
Radwimps. One little small fun fact about Radwimps is that the Makoto Shinkai and the lead singer of Radwimps, they specifically found a way for their songs to have a um, English and Japanese lyrics that work functionally. Like
Mm.
there are English versions, and I know to some people they sound weird. I like them for what they are, they work and they are basically the same meaning. So that is one cool fun fact
That is
that I
cool. Yeah.
really appreciate because I'm just like, wow, that's such an intentional thing to do. And he started doing it with Radwimps in Your Name. Another thing about Your Name, especially a big help from Radwimps, is montage, montage, montage.
Yeah.
Oh my God, does this guy love his montages? And honestly, good for him because he does them fucking amazingly.
Yeah, no, every montage in this movie was really wonderful. Also, like every yeah, I'm just like thinking back at it. Everything is done tastefully. Like nothing is over the top.
It feels super meticulous. Like I will
Yeah.
say, don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna pretend Your Name is some incredibly deep narrative or like something we've never seen before.
Yeah, no.
But it's such a complete realization of a vision of like it's so cool to see like in 5 centimeters a second in the Garden of Words things that he's failing to execute on and this clear feeling of longing and a missing part of your life becoming the main point of Your Name, and then having the storytelling technique of like
Yeah.
swapping bodies and as well as also kind of like the time separation between them.
It is like just so people could imagine this in their head. It's like you have a sports or something that you're knowledgeable about and you're seeing a professional that practiced the foundations to the most smallest detail and does the foundational exercises movements really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how I would describe it. Like so it doesn't blow your mind, but like there's no excessive movements, there's no like lacking like technique, and everything that's foundational is like practiced or used as it should be.
Yeah, it's like when you watch something like I'll use the example of Evangelion. It's like Evangelion is flawed inherently. There are so many
Yeah.
things, but it does things that no other thing does as well as it, or even close to it, and it like basically invented certain things that it's like I'm not gonna say that many things, but some things that it's like it's so hard to not value. But then even if you watch something like 86, 86 is like production value and ideas and clear execution is like super fucking high. But like we're not gonna pretend that 86 is not like a bunch of other stories, and it's not like it's a bunch like this completely new and original thing. It's just so well done that
Yeah.
we're like, wow, it's hard to not be in awe of it, right? It's like we've all probably heard like Beethoven, and we've probably heard a bunch of like incredible like orchestral mixes, but like
Yeah.
hearing someone perform it really well with a hinge of their taste is still incredibly impressive,
It
no
is,
matter
yeah.
what you think. Another thing I want to talk about is I'm a big fan of, so Japanese countryside is like a classic in these anime movies, especially if you watch a ton of Ghibli. It's like a huge thing. I love that Shinkai has this balance in his aesthetic of both valuing the countryside as well as the Japanese, like, Tokyo lifestyle. I think it's really, really beautiful and well done. Like the first walk through Itamori, where it's kind of like you're going through the high school, you're seeing everyone. It's like, it's a very beautiful little, like, not exactly montage, but a little bit of montage pacing. And it's very comforting. The fun fact I was going to share about that is, the teacher, her name is Yukino, because she is a teacher from the Garden of Words.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's exactly, I don't know if it's a reference. I'm pretty positive it's supposed to be the same, because I think they got the same voice actress for it. But yes, It is supposed to be, at least from my knowledge, the teacher from the Garden of Words, because that's what she moved to.
Wait, but isn't her name?
I think it's Yukari Yukino. I think that's what you're thinking. But it's the same. It's the same person. I've fact checked on this more or less.
Dang.
It's a cute little thing. It's not that important, but it's a cute little thing I like to mention.
Yeah, we like those though. That's a really nice touch.
Especially, I like when an artist pays homage to the works, even if it's a very small thing. And then
dude, we should have seen our man Takao chasing her.
you just see, it's like, the scene where Mitsuha's getting on the train. You see Takao getting off the train. Where is she?
Exactly.
And
is she your teacher?
I will say another thing is that I love they actually balance the pacing super well between, it's not like a balance of 50-50 exactly of going between Mitsuha and Taki. It's this balance of, okay, we'll go here and then back to here, and now there's a reason to go back to here and go to the next thing, and we'll keep kind of developing this rhythm of who we should be focusing on. And it's kind of, it starts off with my favorite montage besides the ending of the movie, which is the Green Lantern Zenzenzen type of we're switching places. What? I think it's a very cute montage. It was the trailer for the movie that I saw, and I fell in love with it immediately. And I love how nostalgic it is, because it's just high school life, the small problems of high school life. Of like, oh no, I'm going to be late for work, or oh no, why does this boy confess to me, and all that type of small meaningless stuff. But at the same time, it being this moment you're sharing with someone who no one else knows that you're sharing them with. It's very much I know a comparison that's used a lot for this is an online friend type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they even do it in the movie. They talk about an online friend, but it's that type of thing where it's you're someone you're so close to that no one else knows about, that they literally are experiencing your life in their shoes, in your shoes, in their shoes. And it's just it's so hard to explain that connection to someone that you don't even tell anyone.
That is true. Well, you don't even tell anyone. It's also if you told anyone.
In this instance, yes, it would be weird.
Hey. But no, it's you definitely get the feeling of it being a special thing for both of them. And then also both of them not realizing what they actually feel and all that stuff. I feel like that's really a well-played portion of the story too, for the longest of time they both are in one way or another either not interested to anyone or interested to someone else.
I don't have a boyfriend because I don't need one. That's
exactly.
The thing. Yeah.
And they just don't realize what's going on within themselves emotionally until they realize, obviously. But even that's played really nice, because whenever they swap bodies and whenever Mitsuha is helping Taki
with Miss Okudera.
Yeah, exactly. Get a date and stuff. And then they swap bodies. She's crying.
Yeah.
He's crying.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay. So one of you guys finally.
To get into the light spoiler section of the movie, we're not going to get too deep, but the date with Miss Okudera is a very important thing in terms of the whole the realization of the film, because they don't realize they're falling in love with each other, but it's they know things about each other that no one else knows. There's certain details, hey, do this, don't do that. They're kind of living with each other more or less.
That's
a couple.
Look, hey, people, anyone in this world, you will not know how it's you'll never experience how it is being in your partner's body, as in literally being them. And these two, know that.
There's a movie that I watched that's not very good. I believe it has, I don't remember if it's Zoe Kazan in it or whatever. There's a movie called In Your Eyes that is the exact same thing, more or less, except they're consciously like in each other's bodies at the same time. Um, I remember I watched it because I was like looking for movies that were similar to your name. It's not as good, nowhere near as good, but it's an interesting idea of kind of like, yeah, there's a certain familiarity with this person that you'll never understand, of like quite literally living in the shoes of like, the two important moments that kind of develop the movie is they learn a depth about each other's life beyond the day to day, which is the first being when they go on a date with Miss Okudera, and it's kind of like
Yeah.
this realization of, oh, I'm not in love with Miss Okudera. I'm not that interested. I'm actually concerned about what's happening with
Mitsuhara.
with Mitsuha. Like I care about her more. And it's like he doesn't realize that, he doesn't say that because the whole thing is like they're stubborn teenagers who are like, "Grr, I'm not actually interested in them." But then it's also then Taki swaps into the body of Mitsuha and then lives the life related with the grandmother and kind of learning about the Mitsuha family tradition and all of that
Yeah.
stuff.
It's well done. It's because they could also go the generic route of like them like straight up knowing and like kind of like Mitsuha or Taki getting shy immediately and like they realize like they love the other one, but like it's not presented that way. Like actually us seeing them realizing from one experience to another kind of is a strong point of this story and how it's told.
Yeah, they both have pretty strong personalities, all things considered. Like Taki is
Yeah.
a bit more generic, but Mitsuha is like, she's both someone who wants to be somewhat like, proud of who she is and tries
Yeah.
to like, she cares about her tradition, but she's also still like a teenage girl. That's part of it.
Also, like this, it's also used comedically, but I do enjoy that when they swap bodies, even if it's like even after the first time, they're always like unfamiliar. Like they
Hard not
don't
to be.
like yeah, but like till the very end, like it's still like whenever like Mitsuha is in Taki's body, you straight up like see like Taki moving more like feminine and like
Mm.
doing sudden hand gestures and stuff like that, and like starts talking with a more feminine voice. And whenever Taki's in Mitsuha's body, like he acts more like a like tomboy.
Spread legs, like, just jumping around, doing crazy stuff.
Jumping around, like acting like a boy, and like their families or friends realize it too, which is I feel like a good detail. Like in a lot of animes, when you see stuff like, oh, he took control over this person's body or they swapped bodies, it's somehow immediately they know how to like move perfectly that way.
Mhm.
But it's like, no, like you're literally in a teenage girl's body or you're literally in a teenage boy's body. Like you've never experienced this anywhere before in your life. Like you can't know how to move. And we actually see those details in this show, which is like a really nice touch in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of small details. Like I think if you even examine their houses, they're very humble Japanese houses
Yeah.
with very like nice, very lived in feelings, and a lot of their lives are so intentionally detailed with the things that they care about, as well as also the things that just happen to be present. I'll talk about one more thing, and then I'm going to start getting into larger spoilers and larger thematic things. But this feeling of longing that starts to become more present in the basically middle of the second act of the movie, when Mitsuha almost realizes when she wakes up, she's sad that she's not in Taki's body, and that she's sad that she's not on a date. Not that she necessarily wanted to be it, but she wants to feel connected to Taki. She feels almost isolated out in Itamori, and then she, goes to the fireworks festival, cuts her hair off, and it's just kind of like,
She's like, he's having fun, he's on a date, I want to be with him.
yeah. It's that feeling of wanting to be somewhere else, be with someone else type of thing, someone somewhere. That's the beauty of the whole movie, and I think it really leads up to the third act really well of why you care. And to give the largest spoiler warning here, the third act of the movie is not something that was incredibly unpredictable, but definitely not something most people will see coming. Of kind of, not only is Mitsuha dead, they're spread out by 3 years in both time and space, kind of, and it's kind of like star-crossed lovers who were never supposed to be together type of thing. There's a certain beauty in kind of how much work they put into how much she cared to then how inconsequential she's supposed to feel in the grand scheme of Taki's life later on. Like, if you think about Taki, who he is later, not to rush too much to the ending, but Taki, when he's a grown adult, literally is like, I don't know why I cared about Itamori Village. I don't know who she is. I don't know like why I cared at all. And this kind of feeling of there's so many beautiful details in our lives that we're gonna forget. I think one of the most beautiful things about this movie is kind of near the end is it's kind of like, I don't know why I cared about Itamori so much. I don't know why it's kind of shaped my opinion of, because he later becomes like an architect of like why I want this natural look in Japan, but it's something I obsessed over. And there's plenty of things that like I remember like random fun fact. I remember I was teaching my sociology professor about video games after school because she was interested in that. I'm like, I totally forgot that was a memory I had because I was like, wow, it's like teaching someone about these things was something I cared about. And that's something that like you'll forget about when you're like 20, but you'll remember the time and you don't remember the feelings. That's a big thing about this movie is that you can get so detached from it if you're not careful.
Which they do.
Yes, they do.
Which they do, but yeah, it's the subtle display of importance of little moments and like small things, stuff they didn't necessarily care about, but then come into realization that they are the important ones. All those like little touches, even like having your hair tied in a certain way or stuff like that, all the way to having specific like cultural inheritances left to you from your family. Like, it's what's important in life is really pushed in your face in a good way.
I mean, when they stop swapping, there's a certain devastation the audience feels of like, but this was my whole world. Now what? This is something I thought about on a day-to-day basis. Now what? And this inherent need to find out what happened and why they stopped swapping, and the tragedy that it is of like Itamori being destroyed by the comet and kind of this.
And it's also like that's the feeling of importance I was talking about. That's when it hits, right?
Yeah.
Like you see all that culture, history, small things that are important to these characters, and then they stop switching buddies, and then now both audience and the characters or Taki, they're like, fuck. Like, it hits you like a train.
I mean, Taki, not only does he love Mitsuha, he loves Itamori. He loves the culture of that place because it's so lived in for him. He cares about it. That's not just, I think that's the beauty of it. There's a certain depth to the love that can't be just expressed through I love Mitsuha.
Yeah. He doesn't necessarily just fall in love with Mitsuha, like he does, but like then he also falls in love with where she's from.
And it's a place that even despite him kind of going back and fixing everything, Itamori's still gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful note about nostalgia too, is like it's gonna go away no matter what. Just try to take what you can get from it.
And it's gonna be like a place where, because basically that's the place that brought them together, but it's never gonna be attainable again.
That's a place where their feelings are reserved, and that's important to them. It's very similar to the Garden of Words. It's like that place is, even if it may physically exist, in this case it doesn't, it's a different place now.
Yeah.
Even if that place still exists. And that's a real beautiful part of it. To get a bit more into the larger religious notes, as well as also the themes and ideas that are related to the deeper notes of Your Name. The thing I love about Your Name is that not only you can go into the movie with zero context of Japanese culture and Japanese religion, but it rewards you for digging into it like a lot. Like it really allows you to explore it and care about it if you want to. And I think a lot of other Shinkai films don't hold up to that type of scrutiny. What I think Your Name really does. To talk about the most obvious one that if for some reason you're not familiar with, not even just Japanese culture, but Asian culture, is the red thread. Like red thread is like synonymous with time and like, things being spread across time and following the reign of time.
If you know a little bit of Asian culture, literally the first scene in the movie, you're like, okay. Like,
it's the first thing you should note is like the color red in a lot of Asian media. You got to note it like real quick, especially what it is.
Especially a red knot.
Yes, like red knot specifically.
Like a tie.
Yes. Super, super important in a lot of media. The movie, how it plays with time is very beautiful. It doesn't obsess over it, but I think it finds the important notes. Like I think my absolute favorite part of the movie, besides the very end, is when Mitsuha goes on the date, quote unquote, to try to find Taki.
That was
It's a beautiful tragedy. I love the theme. It's very, very cute. But it's also just like this feeling of misplaced in your own time and space. Like she is herself feeling like she's not in where she's supposed to be in her life. And there's a certain tragedy to that when she meets Taki and it's just like,
who are you?
oh, it hurts so bad.
Yeah.
It's like,
But then there's also the fact that like it was meant to be kind of thing, because Taki's response is like, "Who the fuck is this?" But then,
True.
but then that being said, when like when he gets the knot or the hairband, whatever you want to call it, he just holds on to it for like out of a crutch feeling, I guess.
he doesn't know why, but he feels a need to.
Yeah, he just holds on to it, and he literally, by the way, people, he literally like carries this shit on his wrist for 3 years. So it's like it's meant to be kind of thing.
That's how they're connected. Without the whole like, if you dig into the lore of this film, which I don't necessarily suggest, but if you want to, it's fun. Like it's, I don't think it's necessary for any film, but it's fun. The relationship also to like, you know, kind of the gods of love in Japan, as well as the gods of time and all that kind of stuff in that relationship is very interesting, because at the very end, when you get to the moment with the song Sparkle starts playing when she's running down the hill, they meet and it's magic hour. It's beautiful. It's perfect. If you ever think about doing this practically, I'd be like, oh God, we have to get this shot at golden hour and the clouds have to come through. And I'm just like, this is why it has to be animation, which is why I think any movie or show that feels like it has to be animation, I always give extra props to, because I'm just like, do the things that are almost inaccessible to the live action world and do crazy things with it. And this beautiful golden hour, magic hour, this is our moment together. That is time and space has come together just for us so that we can have this conversation. Not because, you know, we need to, like, I think the beauty of the conversation is when he writes the names on their names, quote unquote, and he just writes, I love you. And the whole thing is, it's like, the I love you was allowed to exist there because love was allowed to prevail. Their relationship, their time spent together, all of that was not allowed to exist, but their love is the one thing that's allowed to persist through both time and space warping. And I think
names couldn't. So
I mean, that's why it's beautiful. I think the beauty of it is just solely related to that there are feelings so strong that can overcome even the largest of, I'm gonna sound like Lloyd Bannings, of barriers in your life. My one Trails friend might find that funny, but there's some very large barriers that separate them, and like there's a beauty to how that can be overcome just by like small incidental feelings that are very important to you. Like, I don't know. I think it would have been, I mean, I think I've heard some people be like, no, they should have just known each other's name. I'm like, no, the point is that the only thing that's allowed to be connecting them is their love. That's the only thing that should be connecting them. And then eventually, maybe in a perfect timeline, they meet.
No, I totally agree, by the way. And I kind of knew that he was gonna, like, cause going to that scene, I was like, fuck names. Like, just tell her you love her. And him actually writing that down, I was like, that's the move.
Yeah.
Like, that's the perfect way of executing that part of the story. Like, I if it was the names, it would be too boring.
No,
like,
it'd be terrible. It's such a clear and concise vision of restraint in so many parts of the movie. I will say the Kuchi Kamizake being the thing he drinks, a little weird. If you know the cultural reasoning, makes sense. But it's a little weird. As well as the comet symbolizing this kind of like this astral force that is forcing them to be apart, but at the same time also the thing that kind of brought them together. It's a very weird thing.
Like, hell no. We're together.
Yeah, it's a very weird thing because they're kind of. It's a very weird feeling with the last little montage where it's like when she's running down the hill and she's like, oh, I'm gonna save the town, do all this, but there's a loss of like, oh, and like, you know, it's very silly and dumb how they repeat the head in the name in their head and then they forget like 10 seconds later. Yeah. Like, what was I thinking? It's a bit. It's a bit much.
That's what we call fish memory. Y'all.
Yeah, but like it's again, it's that melancholy that he chases down so hard with you know, this nostalgia of like, this is my big moment as a kid. I'm gonna prove it to my dad. But at the same time, there's a sorrow in my heart that I've given up something, even against my will.
If anything, Mitsuha remembers the name for a longer period of time.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know. Taki's tired. My guy went to the mountains, climbed up that shit. So I mean, I don't know. I get. But to get to the very end, I think I'm gonna make a very strong point here. is that the reason why I praise this movie so much and why I think some people might not exactly understand why is I truly believe the entire movie, the entire like hour 30 was all for the last scene. Literally the entire movie is not
Yeah.
it's the whole reason that you see the entire movie is not for anything other than to encapsulate the feeling of sometimes I wake up crying and I don't know why, and I don't know why I cared about that place. It's to understand this feeling of longing. The whole movie was just to be like, this is what longing feels like, and now this is why I want to chase it.
Yeah.
And it's like, because first of all, that last montage, it's like, oh, beautiful. You have the Radwim's come in strong with the lyrical, and it's just like,
Also, that last scene is also the reason why I was almost gonna punch the TV. I was watching the other two Makoto Shinkai movies. I was gonna like, if you pull that trick one more time, if we end this movie like that one more time, I was getting really pissed. So
I mean, I love how it encapsulates this longingness that both these characters have. I think that truly there are people, I would argue myself included, walk around life with this strong longing of something that you don't understand fully, but you have this almost shape of it, even if it's an empty shape of like what it should be that's filling your hole in your life, whether it's someone, somewhere, the whole thing. And then when you see it, you'll know. And you'll just know. And I think there's such a beauty in the montage, and I love the song. I can't remember exactly the Japanese title off the top of my head. I think it's like Nande Nemayo, whatever. Anyway, it's a gorgeous song that kind of just is like...
It is, it carries the scene.
Yes, it really carries that scene. It's super intentional, and I just think that it's just this need to chase like you have to chase something that you want. You can't just let life go by, which is a strong feeling that a lot of, especially Japanese people, feel of letting life go by and not being in control of your life, of just like, no, chase it. Even if it's a stray feeling, you know you want it, so go for it.
And at the very end, when they're like, I think I know you.
Yeah. Can I ask you your name? And then a sorrowful, and if you know the English version of it, which I listened to a couple times, it's the Radwim's other
But yeah,
song.
it's also like your name part is like cliche, like on the nose, but like
I appreciate it. I think it was a cute way of doing it.
It is a cute way of doing it. And like, I think I know you line is really delivers the whole like implication of the movie up till that point too.
Yeah, it's like there are people in your life that you'll meet and you'll be like, you are so familiar to me. I don't know why. And theories that people have, like more or less what this movie explains is deja vu. That strong feeling of familiarness that you don't know how to explain, or that's like almost like you met this person in a separate life, which is more or less what this is.
And it is like a really nice scene because they both acknowledge it at the same time.
But they're both uncertain. They're hesitant to. They're scared to engage with it. But it's something that it's like, no, I want it. I care about it.
They take the jump.
And I think that's this. It's so beautiful. Of like, you've probably done it where it's like, have I met you somewhere? And it's like, no. But like, it's such. First of all, if that staircase. First of all, if I ever go to Japan, I'm going to that staircase. That staircase is placed in a real place. A lot of Shinkai's works are based on real places, and it's such a beautiful.
Are you gonna ask a random person, have I met you before?
I'm like 90% sure that's like an epidemic there of just like at that specific staircase of like
everyone just asks.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful little scene of just it's the characters finally, like, I mean, to be fair, during the magic hour they get to be vulnerable, but like truly just being willing to ask that question of being like, can I be vulnerable with you, more or less? Is it okay, more or less, to get to know someone like this? And I think seeing how this all built up, even for me personally, like going back and watching Voices of the Promised Place in our early days, going all the way back to that, or even just going back to 5 centimeters a second, how that feeling is the consistent thing that's been through in like so many of his movies of longing, of hesitancy, of like all this stuff has been there, but he finally got it right, and you're so complete in your name. I mean, there are criticisms I think you can levy with the movie. Like I said, it's not the deepest thing, as well as I also think that, the side characters maybe could have a little bit more sauce here and there. Like, I like the side characters like Teshi, Tsukasa, Okudera. They're all cool. They're all great. Yeah. But there's definitely, Shinkai work is always a 2-character show. That's always what it is.
Yeah, and like, as far as I'm concerned, especially like comparing it to 5 centimeters a second and stuff, like it's still the side characters that much more. Yeah. So like, yeah, it was good. It was fun. Within the moments we had the side characters, they either added something to the story or they were funny, which added to the entertainment.
It's a very funny movie, honestly.
So it's an improvement. I'm happy with it. It's pretty good. Yeah.
It's just such a familiar movie to me. I've seen it a ton of times, but it's also just even when I watched it for the first time, I felt like I've seen this movie before. Even which is not a bad thing in this regard. It's not like it's not a like I've seen this before because it's unoriginal, but it comes from such a homey, familiar place of an experience that you care about deeply. I think that's Shinkai digs into a very specific part of everyone's life, and I think even though I don't like Weathering with You and Suzume as much, he does that in those movies as well, and I think he's very keen to find the connected part of the human condition in very specific moments. It's very minimalist. It's very small, detail oriented, but it's very authentic. Of like these are the things that connect us as people, even though they're small, seemingly unimportant type of things. I think that's why a lot of people like Freyren, even though I think Freyren has its flaws. This is why I like Your Name. You know, it's a lot of small details that build the relationships between people. It's not the, you know, big romantic sway or like, you know, big action piece or something like that. It's these small moments that are going to actually draw you together with these people.
No, it's a simple subject, right? It's a simple idea, and it's a really nice and clean execution of that idea. And like it has all the small details and elements to keep you interested and still like to create an engaging story. It has enough perspective changes and like additional characters, even though they're not necessarily the strongest point, like we talked, coming in and out of the story. So it's not just the two all the time. And it does happy, sad, kind of like dramatic, like everything really well done that you would expect from this genre of a movie.
I know the answer to this. I'm gonna ask you anyways.
Yeah.
But for me, I cried when I watched Your Name first time I saw it, and honestly probably the second time. And then I cried when I watched 5 centimeters a second. Just the ending. The ending kind of cheated and got me. But did you cry? And I'm not shocked. Have any of the shows made you cry? Oh no, Senpai Bunny Girl Senpai got you close, right?
Yeah, that got me emotional at some point, but yeah, no,
Okay,
not yet.
we'll work on that. I'll have to figure out. I have to figure out a show that'll do that.
Because it's not like it's not that I probably have like a super high threshold in terms of like emotional things, but I feel like it has to hit like very specifically.
Yeah.
Um,
What's an anime you've cried to?
that's a good question.
For me, it's really like I can go down the list and it's really easy. It's like your Lion April, March comes in like a lion. I guess Your Name counts. I cried a little during 86. I don't know. Cried a little during Rascal Does Not Dream. Trying to think. There's a bunch of other ones. Mob Psycho, another one that got me. A lot of shows like that.
Noragami. No.
I cried out of frustration during Noragami.
Yeah.
I was like frustrated with the end of season 1.
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest.
We'll work on that. We'll figure something out.
Oh, because it's like usually a lot of times I'm just when it's like a lot of emotional stuff,
Yeah.
like more so than crying, I'm like kind of almost like stuck. In a sense, I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? I'm like, I am not enjoying this, or like sometimes I'm just too sucked in the scene that I'm just, like
Sure.
sometimes you like almost tunnel vision kind of thing. Like I'm just so much in the scene, but not like a character perspective. It's like sometimes when it's done so well that it just takes my mind off of everything. I'm kind of
it takes you for a ride.
yeah, I'm kind of lost in the scene, and that's why in certain moments where people get super like hyped or like super emotional, I'm just like absent, like physically. Maybe that's why, but there's certainly a lot of shows that got me real emotional, like which we just talked about, like in certain arcs or character parts. Bunny Senpai did that too. And don't get me wrong, Your Name, I certainly did feel like somewhat of an emotional, but it was also like it had so many like feel good moments too. It was always like a balance, like up down up down kind of thing. And then on certain aspects, I was just pissed to Taki and stuff like
I
that.
love the
So
tragedy of your name. I think there's a certain like I think all of Shinkai's films have a certain level of tragedy to them that are mainly based off of circumstances rather than the character's
yeah,
actions. That are a lot of I'm not gonna pretend that Shinkai's male characters are exactly the strongest characters in all of his films. They're kind of semi self-inserty, but also young kid making mistakes type of thing. In most of his films, not all of them. That said, it's like his characters aren't like exactly like the most groundbreaking pushing bounds. It's just the situations he puts them in makes you feel things that you wouldn't
yeah.
otherwise. Like I wouldn't.
No, it's
yeah.
definitely like a feels movie. Like
Yeah.
I'd say that for sure. But I feel like that's the case for the other two as well. You certainly feel certain things. They have like they most definitely have that vibe and feeling of drama and like a little bit of like blue feeling to them. Um, but sometimes also making you feel more cozy and comfortable. Like it's and your name having the better parts of all of his movies up till that point is definitely amplifies that experience. So on that regards, I definitely agree. But also I feel like Full Metal Alchemist scarred me for life. So
That's fair. So would you watch more of his films? That's the question.
I would
Yeah.
actually, yeah, I would.
I will say there's a world at some point where we watch. I know I want to go rewatch Red Ring with you because not that I like the film. I actually think it's definitely one of Shinkai's weaker films. But I do want to go back because it's probably been like 7 years since I've seen it, something like that. Or no, whenever it came out, I watched it right when it came out, and that's basically it. Or maybe it was like a year after it came out. Anyways, editor me would know. But and then Suzume, I've seen Suzume twice. I saw it when it came out, and I saw it again when it released on Crunchyroll. And I like Suzume. I think it's got Suzume is like a hit or miss here and there in terms of it does certain moments really well, but it definitely could do more. I think Weathering with You is just poor execution, which in my opinion, I think something that is really hard to talk about as this is very rare for artists and filmmakers is like I think most people could create something like Your Name as an artist and be happy for the rest of their career. I think it's such a realization of what you've been struggling to make your entire life.
That is true.
That, sure, yes, being able to make more is what the industry would love, to keep hitting that note. But it's like there are so many artists who create their one, boom, I did it, and then they kind of taper off. And I'm very impressed by Shinkai to, even if they aren't reaching the same peak as Your Name, of releasing things of a certain quality consistently nowadays. I mean, I think his production team has got it down, as well as also I think he's got a clearer vision of what success looks like. Success, quote unquote. It's a piece of art, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It is a work that you could as an artist look at and be like, okay, like I've executed everything I've learned and wanted to do in this movie, and this actually represents me. Like that's
it's an unapologetically Makoto
exactly
Shinkai.
like it's and that's why after watching it and his other movies, I'd be interested to watch movies like this even more. Like it's almost like a pitch, like a perfect pitch movie for this genre because there's literally nothing that's gonna go wrong and push you away from what well and beautifully executed movies of this specific like storytelling and drama romance kind of take can do for you.
Yeah, we've said it a billion times, but it's just like every department was on point. They knew exactly what they needed. The vision was clear. The direction was there. Everything followed suit and was completed as needed, and was just like it all. Not only is that, but then when they come together, it's a I'm not going to say it's incredibly like symphony, but it is beautiful.
I would say this. Nothing is like you look at it and it's like, wow, this is crazy. Like nothing makes you do that necessarily, but everything is as good as it should be, which is arguably sometimes harder to do.
Yeah, it's a consistency.
Exactly.
We talked about this specifically also with 86. Another thing that's like insanely high quality throughout. I would argue 86 has more highs, but also has a little bit of lows here and there. Not that many, but a lot of highs in 86. But I think this is just constantly at a high level of execution where it's like so many artists probably come in with very good ideas, and those ideas kind of stick out and like, oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. The rest of the film for 30 minutes. Oh, that was cool. Another 30 minutes. And I think that's what's so cool about this film is I think it's such a consistent experience.
It keeps the tempo.
And it all makes sense and it all works and it's all cohesive. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that's so hard to achieve. But yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
was a little longer than expected, but that was Your Name. And
Yeah.
Makoto Shinkai's works. I'm sure we will revisit him at some point due to our need to lend our ear for more movies, I guess, and just kind of watch them more. I'm sure whether we do another Shinkai special or we dedicate more time to a whole one of his other movies or something like that, we'll see. But for next episode, for this month, we will be going over Emery's choice of
Pluto.
And this is a show that I've talked about knowing what it is, but I also haven't seen it myself. But I'm very excited to talk about Pluto. This month has been so good.
It is, yeah. This is a month of good picks.
Yeah. It's a rare one sometimes.
It
Sometimes
is
one of us
rare.
throws in a stinker.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so see you all on the Pluto
Yeah,
part.
on the next one.